Jerusalem, 1187, the city that waited. Jerusalem did not fall suddenly, it waited. After Hattin, the city stood still, like a man who has heard the verdict but has not yet been led to the scaffold. The walls remained intact, the gates stayed closed. Prayers continued. Markets opened in the morning and closed at dusk. Life went on, but it went on under a shadow that grew longer every day. News traveled faster than armies. Refugees arrived first. They came on foot, on broken horses, on carts pulled by exhaustion. They brought no banners, no formations, no hope. They brought stories, fragmented, panicked, contradictory, yet all pointing to the same truth. The army was gone, not defeated, gone. At Hattin, the kingdom of Jerusalem had lost not only men, but certainty. The belief that its existence was permanent, the assumption that help would always arrive, the confidence that walls and relics and titles were enough. Inside Jerusalem, men listened in silence as the accounts were whispered again and again. The thirst, the smoke, the hills, the cross falling, Saladin victorious. Some refused to believe it. Others believed too much. The city absorbed the shock slowly, like stone absorbing heat. No screams, no riots, just the quiet recalibration of reality. Jerusalem had been conquered once before in 1099. That memory lived everywhere, in sermons, in songs, in stories passed from father to son. It was remembered as triumph by some, as horror by others. Blood had filled the streets then. The city had learned what conquest meant. Now, nearly 90 years later, Jerusalem faced the same question again. But this time it was alone. There was no field army outside the walls, no cavalry riding to relieve it, no coalition forming beyond the horizon. The kingdom had poured its strength into Hattin, and Hattin had consumed it. The city's defenders took inventory. The walls were strong but aging. The towers stood, but they had not been tested in years. Weapons were limited. Trained soldiers were few. What remained were militia, pilgrims, refugees, and men too old or too young for war. Jerusalem was not a fortress prepared for siege. It was a sanctuary forced into one. At the center of the city stood the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, sacred beyond measure. Nearby rose the dome of the rock, gleaming, ancient, patient. Few cities carried the weight of history the way Jerusalem did. Every stone had been claimed by memory. Every street had been walked by prophets, kings, conquerors. That weight now pressed inward. Leadership inside the city was uncertain. The king was captured. Many nobles were dead or imprisoned. Authority fragmented, debated, shifted from council to council. One name remained, Balian of Ibelin. Balian had not marched to Hattin. By chance, by circumstance, by mercy, he was alive. A nobleman with experience, restraint, and something increasingly rare, credibility. When Balian entered Jerusalem, he did not bring solutions. He brought clarity. He saw the refugees, the fear, the unspoken realization that no army was coming. And he understood immediately what Jerusalem was facing. Not a battle, a decision. Outside the city, Saladin moved deliberately. Victory had not intoxicated him. He did not rush. He did not scatter his forces. He consolidated control along the coast, securing supply lines, accepting surrenders without unnecessary bloodshed. Every surrendered city sent a message ahead of him. Resistance is optional, survival is negotiable. Saladin knew Jerusalem was not just another city. It was the symbol, the prize, the memory that defined generations of war. Taking it by force would echo 1099. Sparing it would rewrite history. But he would not decide alone. Jerusalem would have to choose. As Saladin's army advanced, the countryside emptied. Villages closed their doors. Roads fell silent. From the city walls, watchers could see dust rising in the distance, not from chaos, but from movement. Organized, controlled. Patient, there was no panic in Saladin's march. That frightened Jerusalem more than fury ever could. Inside the city, preparations began, but they were hollow gestures. Weapons were repaired, watch rotations established, prayers intensified. Processions moved through the streets, invoking divine protection. But faith could not replace manpower. Every man who could lift a weapon was called to the walls. Many had never fought before. Some had never worn armor. They learned quickly or not at all. The city's population swelled beyond its capacity. Refugees crowded streets and courtyards. Food stores dwindled. Water remained, but for how long? The siege had not begun, yet already the city felt under pressure. Jerusalem remembered 1099. That memory shaped everything. Older men spoke of slaughter, of fire, of blood in the streets, of mercy denied. Mothers listened. Children absorbed fear they did not yet understand. The idea of surrender was unspoken, but present. Balian understood the danger of delay. He sought permission to leave the city, to negotiate, to understand Saladin's intentions. It was a risk. Leaving Jerusalem might mean never returning. But staying without knowledge meant blindness. Saladin granted Balian safe conduct. That alone was unprecedented. The two men met between worlds, between victory and fear, power and vulnerability. Saladin spoke calmly. Jerusalem, he said, could surrender peacefully. Lives would be spared. Ransom would be arranged. The holy sites would be protected. This was not an ultimatum spoken in rage. It was an offer grounded in control. Balian returned to Jerusalem with words heavier than weapons. Inside the city, debate erupted. Some argued for resistance to the end. Better to die than surrender sacred ground. Others saw reality. The walls would fall. The people would suffer. The city would burn. Faith clashed with responsibility. History weighed heavily on every argument. Jerusalem was not deciding only for itself. It was deciding how it would be remembered. As Saladin's army encamped around the city, siege engines assembled slowly. Deliberately, no rush, no chaos. The city watched. The walls had not been breached. No stone had fallen. Yet the siege had already begun. Inside the minds of those who waited, Jerusalem had survived centuries of conquest. But now, stripped of illusion, it faced its most difficult enemy: time. And the question that would define its fate was no longer, can we hold, but should we? Jerusalem, 1187. The siege that closed in Jerusalem woke each morning to the same sound. Not drums, not horns, not the clash of arms. It woke to silence, a silence heavy enough to feel like pressure against the skin. Saladin's army did not announce itself. It appeared gradually, methodically, as if the land itself were producing soldiers. Tents spread across the surrounding hills. Standards rose and settled in the wind. Watchfires burned at night, not wildly but evenly spaced, disciplined, controlled. From the walls the defenders watched the circle form. Not tight enough to provoke panic, not loose enough to escape. Perfect. This was not a siege meant to terrify the city into madness. It was a siege meant to convince it that resistance was futile. Saladin positioned his forces with care. He avoided unnecessary destruction of farmland near the city. He protected supply routes. He allowed his army to rest in shifts. Every movement communicated intention. Jerusalem was not being attacked. It was being contained. Inside the city, the effect was immediate. Markets functioned, but uneasily. Food prices rose, water became guarded. Rumors spread faster than facts. Some said Saladin would slaughter everyone. Others said he would spare all who surrendered. No one knew which story was true. Uncertainty became the city's greatest enemy. Balian of Ibelin moved constantly from wall to wall, tower to tower, measuring, counting, assessing. He knew the truth the people did not yet fully grasp. Jerusalem could not endure a long siege. Its population was too large, its supplies too limited, its defenders too inexperienced. The walls were strong. The will behind them was fragile. Saladin tested the city, not with full assault, but with pressure. Small probing attacks, archers advancing and withdrawing, siege engines assembled within sight of the walls but not yet used. Enough to remind the defenders that violence was available, not enough to force its use. At night, fires burned around Jerusalem's perimeter, creating the illusion of endless numbers. The defenders counted torches, guessed at strength, imagined reinforcements that did not exist. Psychological warfare did what force had not yet begun. Inside the city, discipline eroded. Some men abandoned posts at night, slipping away through hidden paths, hoping to escape before the city closed completely. Others argued openly with commanders. Faithful sermons tried to steady hearts, but faith cannot replace food. The city's clergy urged resistance. Jerusalem was sacred. God would not abandon it. Balian listened and said nothing. He knew God had not sent an army to Hattin. Saladin, meanwhile, prepared carefully for what came next. He did not want Jerusalem taken in fury. He wanted it taken cleanly. Order mattered. Legacy mattered. He was not merely conquering land. He was rewriting history. Siege engines were completed in stages. Trebuchets assembled with precision. Earthworks dug slowly, deliberately, always under protection. Jerusalem watched helplessly. Each day the engines crept closer. Each day hope shrank. The first stones flew not to destroy, but to warn. They struck towers, walls, battlements. Damage was limited, casualties few. But the message was unmistakable. We can break this whenever we choose. Inside the city, fear shifted. No longer explosive, now internal. People began to ask the question no one wanted to voice. What if surrender is mercy? Balian called councils. Heated debates erupted. Some argued surrender would betray the faith. Others argued resistance would betray the people. The memory of 1099 hovered over every conversation. If Jerusalem fell by force, there would be blood. Everyone knew this. Saladin knew it too, and he let the city remember. More stones struck. One tower cracked. Another shook. The walls were strong but not invincible. Not forever. Saladin allowed negotiations to reopen. Balian rode out again. This time the conversation was colder. Saladin's terms remained firm, but fair. Lives would be spared. Ransom required. Holy sites protected. If the city resisted to the end. Saladin did not threaten. He did not need to. Balian returned with clarity and dread. Inside Jerusalem, desperation sharpened. People gathered in churches, in streets, in whispered circles. Mothers held children tightly. Men stared at the walls as if staring could strengthen stone. Food supplies dwindled faster now. Refugees consumed what little remained. Hunger joined fear. Saladin's forces tightened the ring. No assault, no massacre, just inevitability. On the walls, defenders slept in armor. Some wept quietly at night. Others prayed loudly. Some stared into the dark, imagining footsteps that were not there. The city had not yet fallen, but it was no longer free. Jerusalem stood between two futures, one written in blood, one written in surrender. And the walls, ancient, sacred, worn, waited to see which choice the city would make.